welcome back, and I say that for a very special purpose on this occasion. Colin, welcome back to the episode. We missed you, buddy. How are you doing?
Hey, good, man. How about you, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing real good. So obviously, this game is going to be a rematch of one that did not go our favor the first time. So I think this is one that's easy to talk about being more of a revenge game for this team. A lot of the guys has been talking about this going into the week. Really haven't seemed to have that mindset, but it's got to be weighing on them the way they lost to this team, a team that we should have beat. We were better than. So I want to dig into this a little bit. Injury updates. We look pretty clear, man. This is about the best this team has looked health-wise all season. It looks like Calvin Austin's going to play. We're getting Highsmith back. Montravius Adams was not going to play in this one.
He's out.
And he's out. And
Pickens is questionable.
I think that was. Yeah, he had that hamstring thing. I don't think there's much to that. Do you think there's anything to that one?
No, he'll play. He'll play. He'll play.
Yeah, that's kind of yeah. That was it for us, though, really. There's really nothing to talk about with the injury side, which is a great thing because all season it's been like one guy dropping after another, and finally we're starting to get healthy at the right time of year, right? I didn't check Cleveland's statuses for anybody in this one. Do you happen to have that up?
I do not. Let me pull it up, though. Yeah, I don't really know what's up with Pickens. I do think that's just, a thing, if you will.
Something tweak type thing that they just took precaution on and had to sit him down, put him on the injury report just because maybe, like.
All right, so for Cleveland, wide receiver Cedric Tillman is out again with a concussion. Wide receiver Jamari Thrash, questionable with a shoulder. That's like their wide receiver, I think, 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Tackle Jedrick Wills is out again. So I'm assuming Jermaine Fetty is still going to be that left tackle. And then D-tackle Maurice Hurst ankle is out. I believe he's DT3. He's like our Dean Lowry, essentially, there. Not a whole lot to say about them either. I think it's, pretty scratch in terms of injuries for both teams.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just ask you, this is a little off topic from what we had on the itinerary, but if you were Cleveland, would you consider shutting down Nick Chubb for the season so he doesn't get hurt again?
I don't know if they plan on re-signing Nick Chubb.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. He's clearly washed. I hate to say it, but granted, this Cleveland run blocking, watching that Denver game, that run blocking is bad. It's really, really bad. But I think Chubb's washed. I have Browns fans that I talk with and hang out with and go to school with, man, and they say the same thing. It's he's washed. He's good. So, you absolutely shatter your same knee twice in an NFL career in the span of 7 seasons. Plus, he's been in the league 7 seasons, so.
Yeah, he's. I hope that. I don't know. I know he plays on a rival team and everything, but I just hope that's not the way his career ends. Is he loses everything because he was still one of the best running backs in football before that injury.
Mm-hmm.
And if it ends that way, I feel bad for the guy. Had a terrible knee injury in college. Now you get this. I don't know, man. I'd hate to see that happen to anybody. But it is what it is. So. Let's talk about this. Let's go back for a minute, couple weeks. Let's talk about what went wrong in that first game. So, did you have some analysis? Because you and I really haven't talked too much about that last game against the Browns. What do you feel like went wrong in that game?
Yeah, it's frustrating all around the board. Winston played a good game. Russell Wilson did as well. But we let Winston play a good game. Jerry Jeudy had a fantastic game. And frankly, we couldn't get any pressure. So I feel like, especially on defense, this team starts with getting pressure. If we're not able to get pressure, we're screwed. Okay? That's pretty much my biggest thing as to what went wrong. And then we couldn't run the ball. We couldn't run the ball. And I don't think anybody made adjustments quick enough to that. There's also the matter of the fact that Arthur Smith called a very lazy game, a very bad game. Really the one game this year, that and Baltimore, they were back-to-back weeks. Baltimore, I give them a pass for because that's an elite football team. But Cleveland, I don't give them a pass for. This defense, it's depleted. It's not very good, not as good as they were last year. I think Arthur Smith called a bad game, and frankly, I thought that was by far Mike Tomlin's worst game management, clock management, etc. Of the season, without even thinking twice. And it feels like every year it's the same thing. We go to Cleveland, Tomlin forgets how to coach. Everything goes out the window with Mike Tomlin, and it's infuriating. So
obviously that was definitely a terrible game, and Russ actually played pretty well, to be honest with you. I mean, 270 yards in a snow globe, like that's a good game for a quarterback in those conditions. And
75% completion.
Yeah, I felt like we kept taking the ball out of his hands, and I couldn't quite understand why at the time. And I'm just like, he was cooking at one point, and I think it was in the third quarter, and we go run, check down, first down, run, incompletion. I'm like, what are we doing? He's literally rolling right now. Why would you take the ball out of his hands? But I thought that was a big component in that game, and I thought that kind of cost us. And you're right about the pressures. They were missing both of their starting tackles in that game, and we still could not find a way to.
I think Conklin was healthy. I'm pretty sure.
Was he there that time?
He was healthy. Yes.
Okay. But I mean, you got to generate more pressure than that. They were triple teaming TJ Watt the majority of the game. If you've got three guys on one, how in the world is no one else generating any pressure? Cam played pretty well for the most part, but he was not getting pressure. Larry O was not getting pressure. Herbig was not really. He was coming off the edge pretty well, but he still was not finishing. Benton wasn't. I mean, I was like dumbfounded at the fact that you got three guys on TJ Watt and you still can't find a way to win a one-on-one matchup across the rest of the board. I mean, that should be a consistent thing with this defense, right? Like I thought that was going to be our calling card at the beginning of the year. It just didn't happen. I mean, what else? As far as obviously Jameis Winston's going to come into this red hot in some respects, nearly 500 yards passing in his last game. 3 touchdowns, had that interception. What do you have? 2 pick sixes in that game. Total?
Denver, yeah.
Oh, that was brutal. But I mean, outside of that, he didn't play horrible. He just gave the ball to him for 12 points, which essentially turns into 14 points. What do you think about slowing him down this time? Obviously, you talked about he played pretty well against us the last time, but what do you think about slowing him down on this one?
It'll be a lot easier to get pressure this time. I truly do think that. I know it's like, trying to... It's very mundane of me to say, just because it's like there's no really basis behind it. But I do think that we will be able to get better pressure this time. I think we'll learn from that. In terms of, Herbig's on a hot streak. Keanu Benton's coming off a really fantastic game against Cincinnati. Cam Hayward's going to do his thing, and frankly, I think we'll learn to give more attention to Jerry Jeudy. I do think that. I see you mentioned Njoku here. I didn't really think Njoku was all that great in the Cleveland game. I know the numbers kind of say the opposite. I don't even know if the numbers. I don't really know what the box score looks like for that game because I went, so I really didn't get much of a look at the box scores or frankly the live game. Pretty much everything I'm saying right now for all the viewers out there is based off of strictly like PFF and what I've seen of the All 22. Didn't really get to watch a lot of it. I was really drunk, really cold, really snowy, so I apologize. But yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I don't think Njoku played all that great. Jerry Jeudy, it's really just a matter of can Joey Porter Jr. grow the fuck up. Straight up. I mean, he's got 14 penalties in 12 football games. That's not a good recipe as far as I know. He's had a tough year. And it's getting to that time of year when it's like, dude, we're starting to approach teams with legitimate wide receiver ones. I'm not saying by any means that Jerry Jeudy's a legitimate wide receiver one, but it's getting to a point where we're facing a time of year when these teams are having legit wide receiver ones especially going in the playoffs. And we can't afford for Joey Porter Jr. to keep up his gimmicks, to say the
Yeah.
least.
Well, that game you talked about in Cleveland, and Jake only had one catch for 9 yards, so he wasn't that effective. But I think it feels like in the past, especially last year, he's had some big games against us, and I think that it's going to be really easy to say Jerry Judy in that game against us had 85 yards, and then what do you have in the last week? I'm insane numbers last week.
209 yards on 9 catches.
Yeah, just
Hey, it won me a
crazy.
fantasy game.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did, dude. I was praying. So I was like up 10 going into the week, and all I had was Jerry Judy, and the guy playing me had Chubb and Njoku. And this is like, we're talking playoffs on the line, dude. I'm one loss away from the playoffs, and I'm like, well, my season's over. And then I wake up the next morning, Jerry Judy dropped 42 points. I'm like, holy shit. It was fantastic. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. You gotta love that. I think if we really focus on, I think the big matchup in this one, I like your talking about the pressure because that's going to be a big thing. Getting Alex Highsmith back is going to make a big difference in this one. We didn't have him in the last one when we played them, but also like you mentioned, Jerry Judy. How much do you think we're going to let JPJ trail and shadow Jerry Judy in this one? Because he's their clear cut number one.
that's a really good question, Trey. I don't know the answer to it. I liked the principle of what we did last excuse me, last week, with having Joey Porter Jr. cover their two, how he covered T. Higgins the whole game, and we kind of just like bracketed Jamar Chase. I kind of like that. I would say kind of do it again. You bracket Jerry Judy with a double with like Elliott and Jackson or whatever, and then you take like Elijah Moore out of the game with Joey Porter Jr. I wouldn't hate that. I just think that there's a lot of different reasons why Jerry Judy cooked Joey Porter Jr. Why our defense was terrible. I don't know, but that's probably what I would do. Use the same thing they did against Cincy.
Larry, welcome in. Appreciate
Hello.
you joining.
What's up, my man?
Hey,
How about that? Throw that question to you. What about JPJ? Do you think he should trail Judy? Do you think he should go with more of an idea like what Colin just mentioned, or we play a ton of zone outside of those matchup type things? So do you think we just run a zone in this one?
I don't know. I think with Chase and Higgins, it's different, right? Because there's two guys on that top tier level. So with Judy, he's a top tier. We kind of, at least right now, he's playing top tier. Whereas Elijah Moore, and I don't know if where Tillman was with his practice, if he's playing or
He's
not.
out.
He's
He's
out.
out.
We covered that at
Okay.
the beginning part. Yeah.
So then it's more, so it's Judy. It's like, okay, you can kind of have him chase Judy all over the field unless he gets those penalties. If he starts pulling those penalties, there's no reason for him to then trail. Then you just play zone. Otherwise, lock him up and see what happens. But if he gets 2, 3 penalties, then stop right then and there, stop and say, okay, we got to change it up. Because it's not like last week where, okay, well, we need to shut down at least one of the two. This week, okay, well, if he's getting penalties, we can mix up the coverage. So
Yeah. Can I just say this? I think JPJ is going to have a fantastic game this
you
week.
do?
I think he's going to bounce back. One of the things I think he's learned from his dad is he knows professional football and how it works. Even though he's a young player, like you put it out of your mind and move on to the next week. Um, the only thing I'm interested about is something that I've talked about a couple times now in this past week is just Judy's another big body guy. Like, does that affect Joey Porter Jr.? Can he put that narrative kind of to bed in this one? I would let him try to get his revenge because I think Joey's going to be hungry for it in this one. Between what happened last week and what happened with Judy last time, I think he's going to want to take this on and prove that he's a better corner than what he showed last week. That's just my opinion of it.
I find it interesting, like, because you're not the first one I've heard say, like, oh, he's gonna. I think even JPJ said that he's got his dad's mentality where he can leave it behind. But we're talking about a guy who at one point said they shot me in Denver. You know, a guy who predicated going back to Cleveland and fought with everybody in Cleveland. I don't think he forgot too many things and left things behind. You know, I think that's the problem. I think I'm hoping he can move on to the next week and kind of leave that behind. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I really I hope he has a bounce back game. I think this is the type of game where they don't have to, like I said, cover 2 or 3 people. I think it's Judy and Njoku versus okay, well, we have 3 different wide receivers we got to cover now. So
Yeah.
hopefully you can put it behind.
Patrick Queen struggled in coverage last week a little bit too. I mean, do you think? I knew Njoku didn't have a good game the last time. Do you think this is a matchup that we might want to circle also outside of the JPJ versus Judy stuff? Like Njoku versus Queen. Like, does Queen hold up this time? Do we shut down Njoku again? Are things different if the elements are a factor? Like,
Well,
I'll kick it
Njoku
to you
dropped an
first,
easy
sorry.
touchdown. Remember that. He dropped an easy touchdown in that game. If he catches that, then it looks like he had a good game, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I don't. I think Njoku can have a big game, but Queen needs to have a bounce back game. He did not look like he was playing, you know, great for what 3, 4, 5 weeks easily, and then in Cincinnati he just kind of looked like he did the first couple weeks of the season, where it was like he looked like he took the foot off the gas.
Yeah.
He can't do that against Njoku. We need him to kind of bully him around. And it's not like this is a guy that we haven't seen, like Queen hasn't seen. Queen's been in this division since day one, so he's seen Cincinnati, he's seen Cleveland. He needs to. It shouldn't be a shocker for him to be playing these teams.
Right. What about you, Colin? What do you think about Patrick Queen lately and this matchup with Njoku? Because that's another part of that. That's kind of why I put this on here, to be perfectly honest.
His last 2 games have been terrible.
Yeah.
Last 2 games, terrible. Patrick Queen, terrible, awful, not good. I think your solution with David Njoku is Peyton Wilson. Peyton Wilson's had a really nice last couple of weeks. He's actually started to play really nice, pretty much I would say ever since Washington. After the bye, I think he started to play really nice ball. I don't really know exactly because it's tough with certain matchups. Like, who the hell is really going to scout and say, yeah, we really need to take care of Jerry Jeudy? Well, now he's playing elite football, so you have to.
Yeah.
David Njoku, I don't really know. I don't really know exactly what I would do with David Njoku. I kind of like how Denver played with him last week, but he also had 2 touchdown catches. So it's like, as much as I liked it in terms of everything down the field, it's like, well, once they got to the 5, it was just kind of Jameis throw it up to Njoku, see what you can do kind of thing. I would say this is one of those games for me, like as a fan watching Mike Tomlin football for so long. This is a game where I'm sitting there sweating about guys like Elijah Moore, Jamari Thrash, Jordan Akins, just some gimmicky-ass weapon that they have that has no business going crazy, with absolutely will have a fantastic game.
Yeah, this is what we talked about last week when I said that it's not the big name backs that scare me. It's always those guys that you never heard of that all of a sudden.
The Tyrone Tracy's, yes.
You're like, who's that guy? And it's perfect. It's exactly as a guy you never heard of. You're like, all of a sudden, like,
yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
So it's not Nick Chubb. It's the 3rd or 4th string running back that all of a sudden goes for 200 yards, and you're like, never heard of this guy.
Yeah.
So,
you think Nick Chubb has a better game this game? Or Colin talked about this just a minute ago. I mean, he said he thinks Nick Chubb's washed now after
I don't think
injury.
he's washed. I don't think he's washed, but I don't think he's not grade A yet. I mean, he's coming back from a huge injury. He's going to take a year or so. It's the same thing I said about Cole Holcomb when everybody was like yelling at me all off season. When I'm like, he's not coming back this year. If he's coming back this year, he's not going to be 100%. And I think Cleveland's like, okay, we need Chubb. We need Chubb. And Chubb, he's an athlete. He's a superstar. He wants to be out there. He's like, all right, I'm going to get out there. He ain't 100%. So He's out there and he's playing. He's not 100%. I think we're going to get about the same type of game with him. Hopefully we can control it and contain him. I think next year's the year that starts to be like, okay, let's see what Chubb has. And if I don't even know why I'm playing him. You're done with the season. Why risk him getting more? Be like, you're
It's
getting
interesting
10
because I
carries a
asked that
game.
question right before you got on here. I asked Colin the same thing.
10 carries a game max and Jerome Ford the rest of the way. That's the most I would do.
Especially for how much they throw the ball too.
Yeah.
And with Chubb, like I told Trent this too, Larry. I'm like, dude, like that Cleveland run blocking is really, really bad. Like
Yeah.
you're watching that Denver game and you're like, every time they give the ball to Chubb or Ford, it's like somebody's at the line of scrimmage tackling them every single time.
Yeah.
And Chubb, I mean, yeah, he had 2 touchdowns on the ground, but that's a box score stat, dude. One was a 2-yard, one was a 4-yarder. I'm not going to lose my shit about 2 Nick Chubb touchdowns when they were, 9 feet away from the goal line. Like, oh, okay, nice. You ran for 9 feet. Congrats, buddy. I don't know what his average was the rest of the game, but he was definitely under 4. I'm willing to say he was under 3. So, I don't know.
He popped like a 15-yarder, and that was it. So
At some point, yeah.
That might have got him above the 3, but that was about it. It was a very standard pedestrian game, but that's what Cleveland has right now.
Yeah. It's interesting you guys talked about like the nobody running backs, because if you guys remember, Jerome Ford busted a massive run last year against us and went for, 65 yards when Levi Wallace just crashed down way too hard and lost outside contain. I hope we don't see something like that again in this one, but I think you guys are right. The biggest piece of this is this offensive line is not the same offensive line that we saw last year either. So, we talked about it earlier at the beginning, Lowry, but like the pass rush has got to get there and make them more of a one-dimensional team. Keep them in long situations so we have time, because I think that's what a lot of teams have started trying to do. And Joe Burrow did it very, very well last game. That quick game that he was using and not letting Watt get home a ton, not letting Herbig get home a ton, and they were still trying to get there, but like he was getting the ball out of his hands pretty quickly, especially early on in that game when they were having so much success. So I'll be interested to see if Cleveland doesn't try to emulate some of that in this one with Jameis, but he's not typically the type of guy who's like a quick game quarterback. He holds the ball.
I'll always say it's the, and then Dick LeBeau ran into it. It's the Brady special, right? The 3-4 defense was predicated on getting pressure, and Brady figured it out. 5 yards a pop, get that ball out, and let your wide receivers make the play. Except in Joe Burrow's case, he had speed down the field and could throw it deep and throw it everywhere. The only quarterback that we've played so far that I've been concerned about running around all day has been Lamar Jackson, right? Because he can spend time back there wheeling and running around. Jameis isn't that guy. And on that touchdown he scored, if Nick Herbig isn't held for that 1.5 seconds, he's tackled or he's sacked before he's able to roll out. So we'll see. Home field maybe has a little bit of a difference to it this week, but I think Jameis has to get hit. He has to get hit hard, and he has to force those Jameis Winston throw the ball downfield and see who's out there type of plays. He's not 1-2 throw the ball. He isn't. No. Even watching that Denver game, it wasn't 1-2 get the ball out of my hand. It was 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, chug it. Huck it, chug it, football. And so now with Alex back, I hope he doesn't play 90% of the snaps. I hope it's a controlled game. I want to see him there down the road. So let the 4 outside linebackers rotate in and out through the game and keep bringing fresh bodies in and chase them all over the field.
So what adjustments, I'll start with you, Colin, what adjustments would you make in this game defensively to make this thing a tougher game on Jameis? Because he did have a little too much time, and he was hitting like the second and third string tight ends in crazy, weird situations and passes. Anything you would change up on the defense?
What's our linebackers this game? I don't think we did any of that the first time. Not like whatsoever. Like based on what I saw from the All-22, I didn't really watch a ton of it. I was going to a game like that where it's like snowy and it's fun and it's cold and like your team should absolutely win and you don't. Really kind of leaves you a sour taste in your mouth. It makes you like not want to talk about the sport of football for a while, and that's frankly what Mike Tomlin does to us. Thank God he's in his 50s, by the way. But along with that, I mean, I just blitz your linebackers, man. You're looking at a team where it's like they're starting Jermaine Fetty at left tackle. You know, I know last time we played him, we got the Highsmith excuse. That's a bullshit excuse. Highsmith is a far superior run defender as he is a pass rusher. Nick Herbig, frankly, I'm thinking might be the better pass rusher to begin with, right? But this, I would say, just bring more pressure to Jameis. Bracket Judy, man, he's so far and beyond their only receiver that they actually care to use. Just please bracket Judy. Those are really the only two things I can even say.
I will say that as far as Herbig versus Smith, Herbig is the faster pass rusher. Smith has the more tools in his tool chest right now.
Fair.
Maybe down the road, Herbig takes that spot, but right now it's still Highsmith. I think I blitz the linebackers. However, I would take a page out of Dick LeBeau's playbook that he ran once and once only, like what, for 20 years now. And I would press those wide receivers. Why? Because like you said, they only got Judy, right? Tillman would be the only other wide receiver I'd fear. They only got Judy. Press those wide receivers. I know we don't have Edmonds anymore, but bully the heck out of Njoku at the line of scrimmage. You don't play him as a wide receiver 5 yards off. You play him as an offensive tackle and make him on that line of scrimmage fight through it and force those timing patterns off. Don't let those wide receivers get that 3 or 4 seconds out in those routes. That's what I would do. I would press the heck out of everybody, every play to get Herbig and Watt that 2.5 seconds to get to Jameis. Because I think, what I saw from the Denver game, what I saw in Pittsburgh, you're not blitzing anybody. You're allowing those wide receivers to get those 3-4 yards off that line, and then you're expecting coverage. Don't force the issue. Force them to make those plays at the line, and then hope to God that you force Judy to make a mistake at the line and screw up Jameis's timing. Force him to make those idiotic plays. I agree. Blitz the linebackers. Don't just sit back and wait for Jameis to make the mistake. You force him to make that dang mistake. And by the way, you say Tomlin's 50, like that's like, all right, he's at least 50. Pete Carroll's what, like 120? And there's still rumors that he might, be in line to coach the Bears. I'm just saying, 50 ain't nothing when it comes to head coaches.
Pete Carroll wasn't a product of his predecessor's success, but okay.
I don't know about that.
What? What?
He built the team, but he
built his own team.
He built his own team. I'm not arguing that he built his own team, and he's a great coach. He built the staff, which is different than Tomlin, right? But there's a lot of stuff that people say Tomlin, he's a rah-rah guy.
He's a cheerleader.
He's a cheerleader. That
I can go cheerlead.
He was a product of the GM and talent. He didn't really, but he's still. I was just pointing out the age part of the factor. That
fair. That's fair. I'm just saying,
he's not like Tomlin's 50. He's not going to be like, oh my God, I'm done. I'm almost 55. I'm going to hang it up. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah.
Belichick, who's dating a 24-year-old who might go to coach a college team, he ain't doing that. We all know that. I was just pointing out the age.
I get it.
I think switching back here, I think
sorry.
For me, I think Deshaun Elliott did a really nice job on Njoku the first game. I think I would probably let him continue. It wasn't like a full matchup all game long. I know they kind of ran a lot of zone in that one too, but I think I would switch to more man-to-man in this one, like you said, and try to change up some of their timing. But I would let Deshaun Elliott more so than Patrick Queen probably run with Njoku or Peyton Wilson, because Wilson's done a fine job. But I think this is the game where I would start working in that 3 outside linebacker sets where you bring Herbig in on the field with Alex and TJ, because I think that's if you can't get pressure, you bring all 3 of them together, and then we don't have to have a debate about who's the better pass rusher, because one of them 3 are getting there. You know what I mean? Like,
I would do that, and I would line up Alex Highsmith over wherever Njoku is. That's where I would line up Alex Highsmith and have him just specifically irritate the hell out of Njoku.
Yeah, I tell you what, I think Herbig's pretty decent in coverage. I want him to be the guy coming up the middle. Personally, I would leave Alex and TJ on the outside in their normal rush lanes, and then I would probably just put Herbig up the middle.
Well, I I would, wherever Njoku lines up, right, I would flip Alex to that side and specifically use him to kind of press Njoku at the line. And then as soon as he gets by him, somebody else would obviously cover him, but he would just be there to make Njoku block him.
So if you were going to run a press on Njoku, then why wouldn't you just put Patrick Queen over top of him and let Patrick Queen be the press guy and let the outside rushers continue to
Because
rush?
Patrick Queen has too much speed to be covering David Njoku. He's just too valuable in terms of what he can do.
Because I also don't think Queen can press at the line of scrimmage. I don't
True.
think he's that type of a linebacker.
I'm just curious, why your thought process.
I mean, some of Peyton Wilson's NC State film has him doing stuff like that, like pressing. Dude guarded a slot for the entire game. I forget which game it was. I want to say it was like Boston College or something, but I remember seeing a game where it's like he was damn near pressing their slot receiver the whole game. And like I said, I mean Queen's just he's too valuable. What he can do in terms of sideline to sideline speed and just kind of command the field, I don't think that him pressing Njoku, taking him out of the play, is really going to do us any good. I think if we're going to make a linebacker do that, it's got to be Peyton Wilson.
See, I'd cover Njoku with Wilson as far as coverage style, just to cover him. I just want, how they chip Watt? That's what you're using Smith for. Like, okay, I'm going to put Watt on whatever side I can to make him, single up and use whatever backup tight end is going to get on Watt. And then Njoku is going to be, okay, he's rather going to chip and then go out into coverage because he's not going to most likely stay in. So why not make him, okay, well, he's got to cover Highsmith. He can't just waltz out into the flat because Highsmith will tear by whoever it is then and get to the quarterback. Same with Herbig. So force him to be physical. And once he gets by him, then you have Wilson cover. I think Queen in the middle of the field as that field general that, Colin said, going sideline to sideline, that's where he's good at. I don't know if I put him in on a man-to-man as much as I put him into that freelance. If you see somebody coming across the middle, take him. But I don't want him lined up to start on top of somebody.
Okay, I was just curious of what your thought process was. I'm not saying you were wrong by any means. I was just kind of curious to see where you were going with it.
I'm all about disrupting the line of scrimmage as much as possible. Force them to overthink it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important in this one because of the fact that we're the better team, and so make sure they know you're the better team. And I think that starts up front because there's a lot of times, and you and I talked about this, Lowry. We're playing off coverage in these zone coverages, and we're 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, and it's just easy completions, easy pitch and catch all day long.
The 35 bailout.
Yeah, I hate that stuff. But how about offensively? Let's switch gears a little bit. What offensively do you think needs to change in this game from what we saw last time?
Okay, Colin.
You got it, man.
Run the ball with more authority would be the first thing out of the gate. The second thing is quicker passes. We'll talk about him. I'll talk about him until I'm blue in the face. I love Austin. He's definitely, like I said before, that 15-yard and up type of wide receiver right now. We don't have that guy in the middle. Let's go with Gronkowski. But right now we need that. We need just a guy going straight across the middle like we were using in Cincinnati. Get somebody just hitting those things and just those quick passes and slowing that rush down just slightly. Get that ball out of Wilson's hands just a couple seconds faster. We don't need to hit the deep shots every play. And I think that's what we were missing that first game. It was run or deep shot. And every time we took a deep shot, there's Myles Garrett saying, hello.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Russ took a lot of those sacks, though, too. I don't think Myles Garrett had as good of a game as advertised, the box score says. A lot of those were very much, deep into the play. Russ was scrambling or Russ was doing God knows what he really does. Frankly, watching some of it, you're like, what the hell are you doing, bud? I just don't think Myles Garrett was as big of an impact as they say. I mean, granted, 3 sacks, whatever. That's a box score stat for me. I really do think I'm with Lowry 1,000%. You run the ball. If that means Najee can't be it, so what? So be it. I think Warren had better games against Cleveland. Both games last year, Warren was better against Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken. If that's what you need to do, I don't give a shit. I really don't. You're not extending either of them anyway. So pick which one is better for your matchup, and I'm honestly didn't even think of what what Lowry said, but I completely agree. Quick game, absolutely. But the one thing I will say, Lowry, is like you have to be careful comparing it to Cincinnati, right? Cincinnati's got Geno Stone and Jordan Battle at safety. Those guys are both awful, right? You're looking at a team with Juan Thornhill and Grant Delpit. Grant Delpit, in my opinion, is top 10 in this league. And then you're also looking at a team with 3 pretty damn good corners, as opposed to Cincy as well. That's why I think it's more difficult for like in terms of like talking about covering the seams, because also with Cincinnati, Logan Wilson, their best coverage linebacker, wasn't playing as well. I don't really know. Owosu Koromoa is out, right? I really haven't heard about him, and
I think wasn't he done for the year?
I don't remember. because I never saw Aaron Marab or anybody post about it, so I just assumed the worst.
I'm pretty sure he was done for the year.
Yeah,
When
I just think we have to be a little bit more careful comparing like the Browns defense to Cincinnati. If they're doing that in the office right now, we're gonna have problems. I'm just gonna say that.
I want to be clear. I wasn't comparing the two. I was saying that we don't utilize backing up the coverage enough, regardless of the players. So in the Cleveland game, they were just coming at us, and we were
Sure.
rather taking deep shots or running the ball.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there was no like, okay, we have
It's
to
more
guard.
diversity, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was saying. Like when you were talking about Myles Garrett, the sacks came late in the play, and that's what I was saying too. Is that they were waiting around for whoever to get open 20 yards down the field because nobody was going 5-10 yards. It was all like, okay, I'm just going to wait for somebody to get open down the field, and their corners, their secondary isn't horrible enough where there's like, okay, they got 20 steps on the guy. You know, it's like, okay, we got to wait. So we can't. I agree. We can't sit there. It has to be a quick game, and we don't have. And everybody's like, oh, he sucks because he's being benched by Baltimore. We don't have that stud route runner right now on the team where it's like they're going to take 2 yards off the line, cut, and Wilson can just nail them right now. We don't have that. So we need to manufacture something.
Can I start with this? Please, for the love of God, quit leaving Dan Moore Jr. one-on-one with Myles Garrett. I mean, can we start there? If you're going to try to throw the ball against Cleveland, can you please quit leaving him one-on-one? Because it was all game long. I mean, there was a couple of like half-hearted chips. Pat Freiermuth would like throw a shoulder in there, but he really wasn't doing anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was like the weakest chip I've ever seen in my life. Like, I'm sorry, you see some guys like go attack T.J. Watt and try to get him on the ground. Like, I mean, like, I felt like Muth was coming off the line. He's like, and like that was it. And then he's down the route. Like, dude, you gotta hit him. Like, you can't just like half-heartedly do it. But I think it starts there. And I would take one page out of that Cincinnati game because I think it can work against Cleveland depending on what defense they run. They ran a lot of cover 2 man last time against us, but they are typically a very strong man-to-man defense a lot of times because they have those 3 great corners. I want to see more of those crossing patterns and more of utilizing the middle of the field with Pat Freiermuth.
Yep.
Like I think that worked. You saw George Pickens come across the middle of the field, and granted, it was a linebacker at the time, but the matchup warranted getting him the ball in the middle of the field, and Russ finally started using it. And then you saw Muth coming alive, and you saw Pickens finding success. You saw Scarona getting that 23-yard reception down there, and then you hit the seam shots to Calvin Austin, which I mean. It opened up so much at the game by utilizing the middle of the field that I just want to see those like mesh route concepts where you get a couple guys coming across the field, get pick plays on these cornerbacks, and take some of their ability off the table because Denzel Ward's one of the best. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Like, he's going to be good. And Emerson, I thought, played, even though he got away with a couple, he played very well against George for the most part. So,
Yeah.
I'm guessing this is somebody for Colin. I don't know who this is, but anyway, that's just a couple things I think I would change a little bit differently. But yeah, you're right. You have to be able to run the ball better than what we did. And personally, I think the offensive line needs to have a big game. And the reason they didn't is they're all young and they came off on that short week. And they had a huge physical game against Baltimore, and I thought it weighed pretty heavily on them. You're not going to have that in this one. So I think they have a better chance playing a little bit more physical in this one than what we did last time against Cleveland, because that's we have to set the tone, right?
Wait till we play on Wednesday night.
Oh, I don't want nothing to do with that. I hate that stuff, man.
Is that Christmas Day?
Yep.
Oh, dude. Oh, quit the gimmick.
Yeah.
I got no problem playing on Christmas Day. I have a problem playing on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like, if Christmas was the Thursday night game, fine. If it was a Friday, okay. But on a Wednesday, it's already whatever. Anyways, so
I mean,
over
this
and
isn't
under
the
George
NBA, right?
Pickens,
Like,
five,
what's that?
over under George Pickens for personal fouls.
No.
I don't know. He needs to clean that stuff up, man. It was interesting because I was watching. This is way after the fact. I watched the Ben Roethlisberger podcast, and he had James Harrison on there, and listening to those guys talk about that penalty when he dropped the ball in the guy's face, like I'm like, dude, they are just tearing him apart right now on this live stream podcast.
Yep.
And it's quite interesting that you just I don't know. Like, it's funny to hear two guys of their stature talking about him in that way, and he obviously is just never going to respond to this stuff. And I don't get it. He's his own worst enemy. I'll continue to say that.
I definitely come from a different line of thought. And I've had these arguments before, way before George Pickens was ever even a remotely thought of for a draft pick, even as far as celebration and everything like that. It's like, cross the end zone, then celebrate. Don't need to showboat when you're running down the field, then fumble the ball, that type of thing. I don't think when you're running down the field, you turn around as you're running backwards and you're celebrating, looking at it's like, no, just cross the end zone, celebrate your team, point to the scoreboard. That's how you get back at the other team. So
Yeah.
But now it's like everybody's like, oh, that's soft. I'm old school. That's not how it's done. Let players be players. It's like, okay, but then remember that when somebody like Montez Burfict does that to our team, and then you guys are all like, oh my God, that's so horrible. That's huge. Oh my God, I can't believe that guy did it. Okay, you're only doing it because of the jersey they're wearing. If that was a wide receiver doing that to anybody on the Steelers, everybody would have been yelling and screaming about how disrespectful it was. So, I love George. I have no problem with the pointing, but he should understand the difference between the point and what he got flagged for. There is a difference. So,
yeah. Let me ask you guys this: if George, me and Colin both think this is nothing, but let's say something is wrong with this hamstring. If he's not 100%, do you think Mike Williams can step up and we finally see something out of him? Like, somebody's going to have to step up if he's not able to go, whether it's during the game or something. Like, Colin, what do you think about that?
It would be more of like a Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, if anything. I don't see why they, like, you obviously see him on the field, Mike Williams. You just don't see him getting any targets or anything like that. It kind of does baffle me. But honestly, dude, with the usage of our wide receiver, I guess in this case it would be considered wide receiver one. If George Pickens isn't playing, you're looking at a game where we run the ball 35 times. I mean, let's just be clear about that, right? I mean, if he's not playing, what, Jefferson, Williams, and Austin as our three receivers? Come on, like,
I think we're looking at like 55 times if he's not playing.
Well, it all depends on snap count. I mean, we only play like 33 defensive snaps against Cleveland, so it all depends on snap count. But I agree. Yeah, you're looking at a run game.
Yeah. I think Williams can step up. I think he's there. I think he can get those targets. I don't know if they will use him to get those targets.
Yeah. It's been kind of interesting to see how all that's unfolded so far. We'll see, but let's get to some keys of the game. We've probably talked about some of this throughout this right now, but let's start with 3 offensive keys to the game. Lowry, I'm gonna start with you. What do you got?
Well, we already talked about the running the ball, so I'm actually going to change it up. Right, ball control, I guess. No stupid turnovers. Right, when you're running the ball, this goes for fan favorite Warren, especially in Najee last game, hold on to the ball. Okay, they're going to come at you. Hold on to it. No stupid turnovers. Control the clock. Right, best way for it. The second thing is, like you hinted at, Myles Garrett needs to stay on the PFF stat sheet only. Give him all the win rush rate he wants. Don't give him the sacks.
Yeah.
And the other part of the offense, Fryermuth has to be on that stat sheet, not just a one reception player to be named later. He needs to have a solid 6 receptions, 60 yards, maybe a touchdown type of game.
I think he had like 4 for 48 against Cleveland the first time. But I mean, yeah, no, I actually I only have 2. You know the line from The Blind Side, run the damn ball. Yeah, that. Run the ball. And then I agree. I'm with Lowry here. Double Garrett, do whatever you need to do with Myles Garrett. You're not getting anything out of Ogbo Okoronkwo, okay? Shelby Harris is not going to give you problems like Dexter Lawrence, okay? It's one guy who's an elite pass rusher on that defense, and you need to take care of him.
Yep. I agree. I think that's my starting point. I said that earlier. I think the offensive line needs to have a really big game in this one. I think they need to have a bounce back from what they did last time because they weren't particularly good in the first one. Obviously, couldn't establish the run, and then on top of that, I felt like Russ was either by design or by his own doing running for his life a lot. So, I mean, it was just that needs to be cleaned up in this one, and I think they need to control the line of scrimmage. That'd be the first point. Second point, I think we need to have another big game out of Najee Harris. I mean, last game he had a monster game, 125 total yards. He keeps playing so well. Like I would keep giving the ball until he just can't do anything, and that's I don't know what the mix is with him, Jaylen Warren and Cordero Patterson. Like why Warren isn't playing a little bit more to be that change of pace back, but for whatever reason, he's not been nearly as effective this year. So I think you got to run this offense through Najee Harris until he can't go. So that'd be my second point on offense. And I think the third thing, like I mentioned, I think you can't just live with taking deep shots or checkdowns against Cleveland. You've got to find other ways to attack them. We saw George Pickens take like a 65-yard slant to the house against them last year, and I don't remember him really even running that in the last game. Like, I mean, you completely go away.
It was a busted coverage, though.
That's fine, but I mean, like you still have to try to utilize more than just these sideline shots is my point. So that's why I talked a little bit about mixing in some crossing routes and things like that and getting movement in the middle of the field and things like that. I think that's the biggest key for me on offense is change up what you're doing. Quit just trying to hit the home runs. Russ was cooking. Let him keep cooking. If he's going, don't change it up and run the ball 4 out of 5 plays in a row. So what about defensively? Colin, I'll start with you first on defense.
Blitz your linebackers. Bracket Judy. Put the rookie on Njoku. I mean, it feels like it's very repetitive what we're saying, but it's just the truth of it, right? I mean, there's obvious ways to beat Cleveland. The fact that Tomlin didn't know what the hell to do the first game sums up the entirety of my opinion on him. Let's just put it that way. Tomlin ruined me type shit. But no, I mean it's quite simple how to beat Cleveland. You pressure Jameis, you force the mistakes, like Lowry said. You force the damn mistake. If you can't take out Batman, you take out Robin. So you're gonna take out Njoku. And I mean, frankly, those are my 2 big ones. So.
Go ahead, Larry.
Don't get beat deep. Pressure the heck out of Jameis and get those turnovers, and don't forget about the run game. Because
that's true.
The last thing you want, this is like the Chase Brown thing we talked about last game, right? Like all of a sudden you're just so focused on stopping that pass game and getting to Jameis that all of a sudden out of nowhere Chase Brown's gonna, like last week, take a little tiny dump screenplay, and then all of a sudden 75 yards later you're like, oh yeah, that guy. I don't want to see Jerome Ford or Nick Chubb all of a sudden become, oh yeah, that guy. So
Yeah.
no, don't get beat deep. Pressure, 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 and don't forget about the run game.
Yeah. I think the pressure is obviously the starting point to this. I think getting in Jameis's face early and often, making him create some turnovers, that's going to be a big piece to this. So I think just making him uncomfortable getting off his spot, I think that's going to be big. Jerry Judy, if you shut down Jerry Judy, I think you're going to shut down the majority of their offense in this one. I think he obviously has become a much better player than what he was in Denver. Not sure he's quite lived up to that first round hype and top receiver of his draft class, but I think he obviously has found something in this system that's working much better for him with Jameis Winston than what he did in Denver. And then the last piece is I think again you're right. Stop the run game, but man, I really want to like dominate them and keep them in long situations all game long. So I think it's just not just stopping the run, but shutting it completely down and getting them in long distance situations.
Oh yeah.
Does anybody know who Baltimore plays? Looking up
No.
right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could try to pull it up for you, but
What was the question?
Bye week. That's right. Baltimore's a bye week. Baltimore's a bye.
Baltimore is on a
Yeah, I
bye
mean,
week.
it's Tomlin's pretty much got to look at his team and go, listen, we we did our losing gimmick to the Browns earlier, right? We've already done it. We've done the Tomlin gimmick in Cleveland. It happens every year, but it's like it's time for a spanking, okay? Dad's got to spank son, all right? Dad's got to give son a spanking for being bad. I would love to just beat the living hell out of him, honestly. Like, I truly, especially because the last time, again, I went to the game in Cleveland, and it was just the most infuriating thing ever, watching these clowns that are 3-8 fucking waltz around like they're hot shit and they won the World Series or something. It was so infuriating, and I'm sitting there like, this Tomlin guy, this Tomlin guy, this Tomlin guy. Like, he's a cheerleader. If he wants to be a cheerleader so bad, he needs to look at those guys and be like, rah, rah, go beat him by 30. Straight up. Like, that's honestly my biggest key to the game. Cheerleader boy, hot dog boy, whatever you want to call Tomlin. Like, dude, go beat him by 30.
I'll say this, right? I'll criticize Tomlin, call him out for some of the other games. That game, I honestly don't think that was a lot of Tomlin's fault. I blame a lot of that game on Arthur Smith not looking at any adaptation from that first half. Like, they didn't make. There's got to be a point where your offensive coordinator has to be like, okay, well, maybe I should call something to take Myles Garrett off of this. You can't, if your head coach is making those calls and the offensive coordinator is not, then your offensive coordinator is not good. And defense, we've already talked about Austin not being creative, and he sure as heck wasn't. And as soon as it came, there was nothing out there. So there's a point of me in like time management. I'll blame Tomlin on for a lot of that stuff, right? Timeouts and stuff like that. But in that game, I was just like, the players weren't doing much. They weren't getting home. Watt was there. The Tomlin shouldn't have to be responsible for Watt, and he looked kind of like, ho hum. And they were so darn flat everywhere out there. It was just, come on. I was so.
But it's naive. It's naive to think though. It's naive to think that Tomlin is in their ears. It's so naive to think that Tomlin is in Arthur Smith's ear telling him what to do. Like, come on, it's so naive. It's so naive for Tomlin not to be in Terrell Austin's ear, being like, yeah, we'll just run base all game and wait for Jerry fucking Judy to torch us. I mean, it's ignorance, not even thinking that Tomlin's a part of at least 50% of that.
But it's also naive to go the other way and think that if you're the offensive and defensive coordinator and you're just waiting around for Tomlin to make a change, then it's also naive to be like, okay, well then what are these guys doing? I don't want to hear anybody ever be like, well, this offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator is the greatest. All right, we can't give Dick LeBeau credit anymore if that's what we're saying about Tomlin.
Well,
we can't. I mean, if it's Tomlin, then it's Tomlin.
Well, Dick LeBeau, come on, man. Dick LeBeau had some of the greatest defenses of all time. Mike Tomlin's taken a team with like 3 All-Pros and giving up fucking 38 to Cincy. I mean,
but he was still there with Tomlin, and according to everybody else, Tomlin's the one making all these calls, and that's all I'm saying. I'll be the first one to say, if we're going to give Tomlin credit for the wins, he gets credit for the losses too. I am tired of hearing people be like, Tomlin does this to win. Okay, well, they lost, but it's the player's fault. No, no, no. If he gets credit for the wins, he gets credit for the losses too. And
Right.
I'm not excusing him for the loss on Cleveland. All I'm saying is I believe that there was a lot of hands in that cookie jar that day besides just Mike Tomlin's. And I am not an Arthur Smith fan when we hired him because I don't think he is creative enough or aggressive enough. And I thought in that Cleveland game, there wasn't enough adaptation to Miles Garrett tearing up that line that was like, hey, maybe we should do something. And it was like, okay, well, let's see what happens when we put Justin Fields in. Really? Now we're going to do that just to see what happens? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Let's
Well,
try
so
this.
my one thing is with Arthur Smith though, you're sitting there and you're looking at the personnel we have. Okay, you have what, two rookies and a de facto rookie on the offensive line starting. You have a 5'10" quarterback. You have one receiver who's actually worth being in the NFL. Listen, I get it. I know you like Austin, but you have one receiver that's worth being in the NFL. And frankly, your tight ends are good. But I just think personnel-wise, Arthur Smith's doing a really damn good job. Now, the one thing I will give you about Arthur Smith is that obviously since he's kind of like a layup game for a guy like him, like that's kind of a layup game. It's like really no matter what you do is going to work. But the one thing I will say that's frustrating about Arthur Smith is knowing that he has no idea what the AFC North is like. Hence why his two worst performances as an offensive coordinator are against Baltimore and Cleveland. I don't think that's coincidental by any means. I think you're sitting there looking at a guy who's played in the fucking NCAA AFC South with Atlanta as your division leader, and you're sitting there saying, okay, this guy's never seen what the hell a Ravens Steelers game looks like, right? That is one thing with Arthur Smith that does really upset me, is that his worst games are by far against the division.
And I
think the good news is he has a chance to redeem himself in this one. So
surely he will.
But
Yeah.
hold on, for Colin's point, bringing up all those people that are on the team that don't line up to NFL standards, they're most of them, Arthur Smith's guys. Scotty Smith, Von Jefferson, Arthur Smith's guys.
The offensive line's Arthur Smith guys?
Cordell Patterson, Arthur Smith's guys. No, but the skill players that he brought.
Dude, Cordell Patterson's third string and Scotty Miller gets 6% of snaps. What are we doing?
And they're still Arthur Smith's guys.
But they're not.
If look at Cliff Kingsbury in Washington, did they go out and get everybody from Arizona to?
Oh yeah.
They got other guys that came in, and he took a rookie quarterback, right? Arthur Smith came in and got Arthur Smith's weaponry that didn't work in Atlanta and brought him here.
How many of them are starters other than Van?
Doesn't matter. You still bring them. You're not out there with just one wide receiver. You've got depth, right? And right now you got Von Jefferson that we had starting for how many games? Because we couldn't land another wide receiver. And then you go behind him, you got Scotty Miller.
Scotty Miller's wide receiver 5 and he plays 6% of snaps. That doesn't count.
But who's in front of? So you had Calvin Austin, right?
That's not a Smith. That's not Arthur Smith.
But he was drafted right before, and that's what I was
correct.
saying. He was drafted before. So then who's after Calvin Austin?
Mike Williams. That's not Arthur Smith either.
Mike Williams didn't come in until what, 2 weeks ago? So you can't count him. He was traded because they couldn't land, like I said, anybody else.
Skowronek.
And Skowronek came in off the waiver wire because they couldn't land anybody else. And at that point,
That's it.
They signed Scotty Miller in the offseason.
Yes.
They signed Von Jefferson in the offseason when they could have gone after other wide receivers because they fit Arthur Smith's offense. Because they're Arthur Smith's people. Our backup running back, our kick returner that they vaunted. They signed him the day they changed the kick return rules. Arthur Smith's guy.
I don't think that was a Smith thing. I think that was actually kind of smart. Me and Trent talked about that on the podcast. That wasn't.
And what is a return? What is a return as a kick returner?
He's actually a pretty good year as a running back. I'm going to be honest. I think he's done decent.
But I asked, is a kick returner? As smart as that signing was, that has been $2 million kick returner.
No.
Has been nothing.
I think injuries derailed a lot of what he's.
Yeah, I agree too. I think he was still hurt the last few games.
I do too. But
okay, let's put it this way: has kick returning in the NFL been anything? No.
It's true.
So it doesn't matter if he was healthy or not. Kick returning is stupid. The rules are stupid. He's Arthur Smith's guy. They brought him in knowing that he can help with the kick return and help with the running game for Arthur Smith.
Well, let's get down to some predictions. Lowry, since you were the late one on here, you get to be the first one to give predictions on here. Let's start there. Who you got?
Let's see. Then the Baltimore game, I said it would be 13-10 Pittsburgh. In the Cincinnati game, I said it would be 36-30 Cincinnati. So in
Damn good
Cleveland-
guess. It's a damn good guess. It's a damn good guess.
I was way off.
in this game, is it supposed to rain?
It's going to be 45 and sunny. I'll be there.
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right, so then I'm going to say 28-24 Pittsburgh.
All right, I like it. Colin, what do you got?
26-13 Pittsburgh.
All right. So then I'm going to be the guy who expects an offensive explosion in this one again. Since I was way under on the Cincinnati game, I think this offense is for real. I think they're going to do more against Myles Garrett than we did last game. So I'm actually going to go 35-13 Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be a beatdown.
I would, dude, Trent, I'm with you, bro. Can I switch?
Man, I hope that happens. I will be singing Arthur Smith's praises if that happens.
Dude, I think Artie's been okay, man. I'm cool with Artie. I'm cool with him.
Yeah,
He's been
I
okay.
I think he's had 2 bad games, and the Ravens game you expect
Was so bad. That's true. The Ravens game was kind of expected.
It's always ugly. Like it's
Yeah.
just the way that rivalry
Yeah.
works.
Dude, you could have Ben Johnson as our OC in that game, and you couldn't tell me we're scoring any more than 22.
No.
I could tell you with Ben Johnson. Although I'll take that back. With the players, the depth of players we have on this team right now, I don't know if that would happen. But I think the offense would look different. I don't think that Arthur Smith going back through Atlanta and Tennessee is an aggressive style of play caller that I was hoping that we would have.
Well, I'll say this. The reason I think this game is going to be an offensive explosion, and I think that the offense is for real now, is because Russ Wilson's been checking a lot of plays at the line of scrimmage in the last couple of weeks. He's checked a ton of plays, and he's gotten them out of bad plays and into good plays, and I think that's been a difference. So
Who calls those plays?
God. It's matchup oriented, man. It's matchup oriented. It's what you see. It's what you see. Arthur Smith doesn't know if they're bringing out cover 3 or cover 1.
And also and just saying, given Arthur Smith's cut, most likely the audible is designed by Arthur Smith, said, okay, here's the play, here's the audible.
Yeah.
So I just had to take the shot. It was there.
You nailed it too, because you took it.
Oh, yeah, it was there. I had to. It was there.
I make it too easy for Lowry, man.
You did. All right, guys. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys both coming on again. Anybody watching, you know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. Hopefully, all of us are correct and the Steelers come away with a victory here tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Be ready to roll. Colin, I'm going to be looking for you on TV if you're going to be there, buddy.
Thanks, brother. I'll be looking for you.
I'll be looking for the guy with the handcuffs. Got it.
Colin, most likely to be arrested at a Steeler game. I like it.
I'll take that superlative. I'll take that.
Throwing the Browns guy over the thing to get jacked by Harrison.
All right, guys. I appreciate you coming on again.
Hey, thanks again, Trent. Lowry's good to talk to you, man.
And nice talking to you. Glad you're back.
All right. Have a good one.
All right, see ya.